Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Town of Vesuvius Committee of the Whole meeting, November the 14th, 2023, at 9 a.m. in Council Chambers. So we first of all need the approval of the agenda, and I don't believe there are any late items.
No, there's not.
Thank you very much. Can we have a motion, please? Councillor Bennett, Councillor Chong, all in favor. Thank you. And the adoption of some minutes, the Committee of the Whole minutes from October the 10th. Councillor King, Councillor Poderica, all in favor. Thank you. And with first up, we have it says petition and delegation. I think it's more of a delegation. And the Vesuvius RCMP quarterly update, and we will have it presented by Sergeant Beta. Welcome, Sergeant Beta, and we brought a guest with you.
I did. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having us. Yeah, before I get started, I want to introduce my new boss, Staff Sergeant Dan Pollock, who has arrived to Penticton Regional Detachment. He'll oversee basically all of our smaller detachments in the South Okanagan, all of our Soyuz, Jeremy's, and what have you. So he's been here for about 3 weeks or so, coming from Squamish. Dan has a lot of experience in small town policing as well as large cities, so he understands the different nuances of policing in varying size detachments. So it's going to be a good asset for us.
Welcome, Sergeant Pollock.
Thank you. I also want to talk just briefly about resources. As we know, Corporal Dave Smith left us at the beginning of the year for transfer to Penticton. And we've named incoming Corporal Heather Bradshaw, who's coming from Penticton to Vesuvius, and she should be here early December to start working in our community. So that's a plus for us. We also recently, well, actually beginning of summer, we added Constable Michael Drummond. He comes to us from the Vancouver Police Department. He has 32 years policing experience. He actually started with the RCMP, worked with RCMP for a number of years back east, converted over to city police, and always wanted to come back to the RCMP. So he's joined us here in Soyuz. He was a road sergeant in his previous job, so he has a lot of supervisory experience and great asset to have added to our detachment. We also have incoming with Superintendent Brian Hunter's retirement. We have well, they've named a new commander, so that's Inspector Beth McCandy, who's coming to us from Kelowna. She'll be assuming the role of superintendent and officer in charge of the regional detachment. So she should be here mid-December, is it?
December 18th.
December 18th. So I don't know her personally. I've been on a few meetings with her, and but from what I've heard, she's going to be a really good asset to South Okanagan. So look forward to her arrival. So just a reminder that policing priorities, the main priorities we have are to reduce property crime and police or road and marine safety. So a lot of times, or a lot of ways to reduce property crime is through education. You know, reminding people, and that's what we do at these meetings, as well as recently I did a lengthy interview with one of the local media outlets where I spoke about crime in general and how to prevent yourself from becoming a victim of crime. And I think we just got to keep getting that message out there that you know, lock your doors. This isn't the 80s anymore where we can leave our doors open and not worry about our property. We have to really lock our stuff and, you know, lock our vehicle doors, lock our houses, and if we can have security systems in place, great. Please don't leave your valuables in plain sight, because we're seeing a lot of our thefts or, you know, thefts of opportunity. People seeing items that are of value, they're being stolen where otherwise if they'd been hidden, the culprits probably would have just simply walked on by. Marine safety. One of the things you know, with that is proactive enforcement of the lake in the summertime. We've had a difficult time doing that just because we've been lacking in operators of a police vessel. We're fortunate that this fall we have managed to have 2 more of our officers trained on the vessels. So it's a long training. It's they do on the west coast on the open seas, and it's quite intense. But we have two members that have successfully completed that course, so we should be able to set up the proactive patrols next summer. I've also talked to you about and talked to the community and Rotary about making a safe boating station that I'd like to have placed on the lake here. And that builds on some of the towns that have these life jacket stations where we're gonna have an all-encompassing voting safety station. It has messages out there, the QR code there where people can scan. It takes them directly to the Transport Canada link and providing them with all the safety requirements they require for their vessel, as well as having a map of the lake showing them where shallow areas are, you know, the safe passage areas, different speed limits for different areas of lake, such as under the bridge. Pleased to say that the presentation at Rotary went very well. They're going to take on that project and look to build that and install the main one down at the Swayze Marina. They're going to need support from council, and I believe the Rotary is coming today and looking for basically a letter of recommendation, because Rotary works off funding and donations and different funding from Rotary Club. So in order for them to get started on this process soon enough, they need to get the funding from Rotary, and they need to get it probably before council can approve maybe everything on it. But so they're going to be looking for at least a letter of recommendation from council. So I really encourage.
It's on our agenda for this afternoon.
And I really encourage council to think hard about that and support that, because I think it's a really good cause to, you know, increase safety on our lake. That being said, I'll get into the stats for the third quarter. Really happy with the stats. You know, when we go through them, this is for, you know, July, August, and September, our busiest months of the year, where we, you know, tend to see an increase in calls for service, but actually the summer is very good. We do see a slight influx in assaults. There's common assaults and assaults with a weapon. The majority of these involved persons who are intoxicated. A lot of them were incidents after the, you know, people leaving, patrons leaving the nightclubs or the local pubs. They also included incidents were familial in nature, parents and children, or siblings arguing, or in some cases domestic disputes. We did have 2 assaults with a weapon. One was an argument between 2 campers up at above the golf course, and where we know that people are doing some long-term camping where they shouldn't be. And then we had an incident where someone was pepper sprayed due to loud noise complaint. Other than that, the violent crime is been very low for us, which is good, and it's typically been that way. So when we go into the property crime, that's typically the crime we get in town. There's, you know, theft of vehicles or theft from vehicles, mischiefs. And I believe you all have a printout of the stats, third quarter stats with you. So when we look at auto theft, shows in quarter 3 that we had 5 auto thefts compared to quarter 3 last year where we had 2. The issue with these stats is a lot of times our analysts will pull these off in real time, and then we get them, and by the time I get here, files are investigated and the outcomes may be different. So in this case, 3 of those 5 auto thefts were actually false calls. So basically they were, and it happens a lot. People forget where they left their car and they'll call us, and you know, they call in as a vehicle theft, and then they call us back apologizing that they simply either lent it out to someone. In one case, they'd taken it to a mechanic and fixed it, and simply forgot. So we did have 2 legit thefts of vehicles. One of those vehicles was recovered in Karamias, and the other one is yet to be recovered. Going down the list, for this quarter or year, for this quarter everything's good, but the year to date we have a bit of a uptick, 4 more files this year for theft from vehicles, and this quarter that includes 2 catalytic converters. So we're still having issues with catalytic converters being stolen. We had 1 license plate stolen, and then we had thefts from 3 unlocked vehicles. Out of all these thefts, there was only one that was what we call a smash and grab. So it was a vehicle that was locked. There was, in this case, there was a wrapped present in the back. So those are always enticing presents, even if you don't know what's in it. It could be something valuable. So when it was smashed and that item was taken. So again, keep your valuables, we like to tell them, keep your valuables out of sight and keep your doors locked. The next increase we had was frauds, and we seem to get frauds increasing as the economy gets more difficult for people. And people are looking to make a fast dollar. And the issue we're having here is we're still getting these online and telephone frauds where people are phoning and saying that, hey, you missed a payment on this, or whatever maybe, and they're asking the people to go buy gift cards and then phone in the number from the gift card, and we want to remind people that companies, whether it be a utility company, whether it be the police or anyone that's looking for money, we never ask for gift cards. We had one victim who was a victim of a substantial amount of fraud, where the caller identified themselves as police and said that, they're working on some type of project and they needed this person to provide them money, but they couldn't speak to any other police. When we found that person, the officer spoke to them. That person was actually fearful to speak to the officer that was in uniform there, because she was told by the person on the phone, do not speak to any other officer about this. And that person had been going around taking money out of their bank account and buying Bitcoin and sending it to these people. So again, remind people, talk to your elderly parents, ensure that they're never providing gift cards, payment by gift card to people that are phoning you. You understand that police don't ask people for money or for payments, especially when it's through a gift card or Bitcoin. We don't collect money unless we're doing something on our front counter that's such as fingerprinting or certain things that the government makes us collect money for, but that's at our front counter. We'll never ask for money over the phone. So again, it's education. We need to talk to our family members and remind them that, and if they're unsure, have them call us, and we will, hopefully set the record straight and prevent the problem from happening. So that's basically it for the stats. A really good quarter again, especially being our busiest time of year, and so I'm happy with the way everything's going. I'm welcoming any questions.
Thank you very much, Sergeant Data. It always looks nice to see the green on here for sure. Interesting when you were talking about fraud, that one day, it was about a month ago, I had a call saying that my one of my cards was compromised, and so I hung up, went to CIBC, and I said, this is what I was told. They checked, they said, absolutely not, you're the 10th one today, and then tell us the same thing. So it was unfortunate, but it didn't sound right to me. Of course, I'm not going to do anything over the phone. But it's important that people know that there's all kinds of ways that they say that things have happened to your account. So you really need to hang up, phone the police, or phone your bank and find out. Yeah.
No, and that's a really good point. And another thing that they will do often they will ask you for your credit card number and your code on the back, or your PIN, things like that. And these are things that the bank's not going to ask you. Mm-hmm. If the bank calls you and your card has been compromised, they may bring up certain purchases and ask you if that's a purchase you made, but they're not going to start asking you for certain numbers. And so, like you mentioned, contact your bank and they will straighten it out, whether it's them actually calling it up.
Anybody else have any questions on Sergeant Beta? Well, thank you for keeping us safe, and we feel very comfortable in Osoyoos, and we're glad that you have a full complement of police here right now. Is that what I understand? Good.
That's correct.
Thank you very much for coming and for bringing Sergeant Pollock with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we move on to some directors' reports, and the first one is the corporate services report. That's what I have. Sorry. Community services? I'm sorry, yes, you're quite, it's at the bottom of this page, I was looking at the top of that. Absolutely, community services, thank you very much. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I hope I don't forget my keys to my car. I just wanted to highlight a couple of items for the community services third quarter summary for July 1st to September 30th. The Sun Bowl Arena, we installed a new plate and frame chiller. Following that, the ice was installed in July. And the bookings for the quarter were at near capacity, obviously with all of our camps. We wanted to highlight the donation from Wangler Electric for the LED gemstone lights. Lit up a really nice purple at night for this month. For the Sonora Center, just a couple of items. Our Cactus Kid program exceeded our forecasted numbers. We're well above our allocated budget, which was good. The swim lessons at the beach were also very popular. Again, the budget amount for that was well over what we anticipated. Fitness classes, total body fit had anywhere from 180 to 233 active participants throughout the quarter. Our drop-in total for the quarter was 671. Our member check-ins from people who have memberships, 2,257. And during the month of September, we sold a whopping 262 annual passes. Obviously, that's the sort of sale that we have at that time. And during the third quarter, council approved the accessibility plan, which helps us find everything that we need in terms of accessibility throughout the community. And that's my report.
Thank you very much. It certainly, you've got a lot of information in here. And I did, go through it and read it all. So I just thank you for that because it's a very complex report. We appreciate having all that information. Any questions, Director Davis? No? Well, thank you very much, Director Davis. We need to, yeah, we'll just go on to the next one. All right, let me see if I get this right. Corporate services.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just going to highlight a few stats from corporate services, which would be from the third quarter, July 1st to September 30th. We're going to highlight bylaw enforcement. As council can see, animal control again is up, with largely dogs at large have been a challenge for bylaw this year. We're already at 68 occurrences. Another highlight is under the good neighbor, which have been water infractions. So I'd like to highlight that we did have bylaw enforcement officers doing some blitzes several times during July and August, where they did write warnings and also MTIs for watering. This will become the norm, and you'll see bylaw enforcement on next season doing blitzes either early in the morning or late at night, making sure that people are complying with water restrictions. Another stat that just about doubled was our park enforcement. Bylaw enforcement spent a lot of time in the parks this year. Different infractions could be smoking, just educating people that there's really smoking, drinking. Sometimes we see people tying tight ropes onto trees. That's not allowed. Dogs in the park. So just kind of giving tourists a friendly reminder and visitors on the beach. The town bylaws. And also unsightly premises were up a bit from third quarter this year to third quarter last year. So that was the bylaw enforcement stats. Another interesting stat would be there was the 2023 wildfire. And during that time, there was 90,000 views, just about 98,500 views on the webpage for the wildfire, with about 79,600 viewers. And there was 35 news sent out during that time, and 20 news put out by corporate services. Another stat that we are seeing a rise in, which takes up a lot of staff time, is freedom of information requests. During the third quarter, we received 5, And so our year to date is 13, and year to date in 2022 was 9, and that was the highest comparator in the last 5 years. And finally, the other stat highlight on is we have been busy with bylaws and policies, and there were 9 passed in the third quarter to year to date of 24. So thank you very much. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank my team for a strong third quarter, and I'm looking forward to the fourth quarter with our new addition of our officer, Sean Seaberg, who starts today.
Thank you very much, and that's another very detailed report, so thank you so much. Anybody have any questions of Mrs. Hilton? No, we're all good. Thank you very much. So, Representative, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor Porto. So, for council is the finance quarterly report to September 30th. Just want to touch on the numbers. Our projected surplus for the general fund is $1.9 million. This majority of surplus is coming from a return on investments of 1.5 million. Salaries, unused salaries of 260,000. Landfill revenues, 100,000, community development, 62,000, our contingency of 30,000, and our franchise fees for Fortis of 20,900. Fire department has a current surplus of $214,060. ERCP has a current surplus of $55,711. Sewer fund has a projected surplus of $128,315. And our water fund has a projected surplus of $240,600. Our Sun Bowl Arena as well, right now has got a projected surplus of $4,600. Getting into one of the stats that just wanted to highlight regarding our property taxes. We've got currently 50 properties as of September 30th that are in tax. This compares to 29 from the previous year, so that's a bit of an uptick in outstanding taxes. Likewise, with current taxes, we have 218 properties with outstanding current taxes compared to 160 the previous year. Numbers for the rural system are opposite. For rural sewer, we've got 7 outstanding compared to 11 previous year. And for rural water, 54 outstanding compared to 64 of that previous years. And if council's got any questions at this time, I'll.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zackel. That's a lot of information in there. Anybody have any questions, Mr. Zackel? Good, and I know that you're busy right now getting things set up for the people who are paying monthly.
Yes.
And that definitely has been a concern for some of those people who have seen a large increase. And so I'm glad that that they are phoning or asking and having things explained to them, because I'm sure it was it's a concern for some people.
So what we're trying to do is explain how that number was generated, how it was calculated. With the pre-authorized payment plan program, we had collected already 4 months worth of payments. So that skews the actual what annual monthly number would be. So we're collecting the residual remainder within a 6-month period. So we try to explain that in the letter. We're also trying to explain that over the, when we see them in person or over the phone, and we welcome those calls to try to explain that. There is also the option if they feel that our number is not calculated correctly, they can opt out of the program or pay a different amount. We're really trying to set them up so that they don't have a balance owing at the end of the year. Likewise, any of their monies that they are depositing with the town, they're earning interest on that, and I think it's close to 6% interest right now. It's prescribed from the province as far as what that interest rate is. So they do get, as they're prepaying, they are earning interest on their money as well.
Thank you. I think that's important because, sometimes people don't understand exactly why it's gone up, so quickly and so much. And they need to know that. So please, to anybody listening, if you are concerned, please phone and talk to someone. At the town, they're, very good at answering calls and explaining the situation. Well, thank you for that. You okay? Go on to the next one. We'll go on to the city's fire rescue. Report card.
Thank you, Mayor Recordoff. Through you to rest of council, you have my quarterly report from July 1st to September 30th. I'm wondering if you have any questions in relation to the end or the third.
Can I ask about the false alarm? It's on the second page of your report. That's a pretty high number, isn't it? Can you
It is.
explain what that means?
During the seasons where a lot of the temporary housing is being used by some of the influx of workers, they are triggering alarms repeatedly. And we have about 5 or 6 properties that we've identified where we're trying to work with the property owner. This past weekend, we had 2 calls to the same property that we've already responded to 8 times this year.
Wow.
So out of that number, 1 property is generally half of those numbers. But we are working with them in hopes to educate people that are staying there. The unfortunate part about it is that it's the jump between seasons, and sometimes there's a language barrier when you're responding to the properties. And sometimes when the alarms are going, there's no one there on the premises at all when we show up, so.
Thank you. And the other question I had was the public service one. It says there are 5. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, if we're asked to do a lift assist or gain access to a house where someone that is in need of BC ambulance care can't get to the door to open it for the crew, or the RCMP need to do a wellness check, and we will access entry into the property for them.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions of Chief Courtmeyer? I like the fact that everybody's putting in charts and pictures in their reports, because they're not only interesting, but they're very helpful in understanding what's going on. And we know that you've had a busy summer with the fire here, plus helping with fires in other places. And we certainly appreciate that from the town's point of view. And I have heard some of the fire chiefs from up the valley thank Vesuvius and other places for coming to help. So thank you very much.
And if I may,
Yes.
Mayor McCourtaugh, just to you, to rest of council, I'd like to just pause for reflection of 5 different things. One is about the deployment. We have been very careful of how we deploy our resources in wildfire situations, because the fire department's mandate is that we look after us first.
Yes.
And if there is a capacity where we can look after others, we will. We did that when Kelowna, West Kelowna, and Lake Country had their really bad day this summer. And a couple of the other areas that we responded to either cover off crews because they've spent 36 hours on the fire ground for 2 cycles. We did deploy and we made sure that the town of Vesuvius was protected in the time that our crews were gone. That revenue that we saw was around $70,000 to $80,000 that we saw in that quarter, that we were able to recoup from that deployment. The time in by the volunteers, from 80 calls this quarter compared to 69 last. We saw around 986 of those hours. That's excluding the officers that we have. So the chief and the deputies. So this roughly goes from 391 in the quarter last year to 986, which is 152% increase. That call volume and the requirement that we place on the pay-on-call firefighter I wouldn't be doing them justice if we didn't take some time to recognize their efforts in that. When we had our really bad day, we asked them and they all showed up, every single one, even the ones that were in the probationary portions of their training to help provide that auxiliary support. I cannot be prouder of the crew that we have here. It was something that was recognized by Chief Lee in my country, that even after we kind of had our butts handed to us, we still, about a week and a half later, went and made some really good saves in Lake Country and Kelowna. And on page 59 of 123, after about a 24-hour operational period, you have captive students sending down to take a rest. And unfortunately, they tried their best, saved a number of homes directly. But yeah, they're seeing one that they tried to action and couldn't quite do what was necessary. So all I can say is I'm very proud of what we have here. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, and we're very proud of our fire department as well, for sure. Did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. On page 4 here, you talk about business license reviews. Could you just explain that? Is that new business or just something you do every year? The business to make sure they're safe?
No, our prevention department, when there's a request for business license, they will come forward and we will then inspect the premises for fire and life safety. That includes new occupation and any of the ones that are older occupied. We have them set up on their prevention fire and life safety schedule. So on page 4, you'll see that we have right now around 318 identifiable properties that we've identified as fire and life safety inspectable properties. That number is increasing because we're finding businesses that are operating that are kind of below our radar, but we're capturing those and we're ensuring that those are new business license applications. Councilor King.
So kind of over a year, you're hoping to get through them all, or over a couple of years, you kind of circle through everybody?
So we have a fire and life safety inspection frequency policy, and once every 2 years, we do all of the properties in town.
Right.
On that second year, we only do the ones that are required by the BC Fire Code, hospitals, schools, daycares. So in those off years, we're using that, I guess, lesson schedule to do fire and life safety pre-plans, which we'll be talking a little later today. But yeah, so this year we will capture 100% of those identified properties, 318. And we're on track to have that complete before the end of the year. So this will be the first time since 1947.
Did you inspect this building every 2 years?
We inspect it every year.
Thank you.
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, thank you very much, Chief, and Assistant Chief McCaskill for coming. Next is the Operational Services Department, Mr. Burns.
Thank you, Your Worship. As noticed in the quarterly report that that quarter is one of our more busier quarters with regards to demand and production. Water production peaked, effluent discharge peaked, effluent use up at the golf course peaked. So this is the one of those seasons where we're all out making sure that water production stays going and wastewater production continues to flow up to the lagoons. Some notes of things that have gone down is road sweeping. That is a seasonal activity. So during the first quarter or second quarter, we're busy picking up sand and salts and all the stuff in the road surface, whereas in this one we're just doing maintenance. Mowing hours, we are up. Again, that being the peak season for us to be able to mow in our parks. That is it. Any questions from council?
Anybody have any questions? I was looking at the chart that you have on sign replacements, and then I read the page before that it's repair and maintenance, speed signs, crosswalk signs. Those are what you're talking about.
That is correct,
Sign
sure, yeah.
replacements, yeah, good. Okay, well, thank you very much, and thank you for the comprehensive report. Oh, can I ask one question? It's on page 71, the capital projects. You have, we've now been successful with funding for the water treatment plant. This 11.3 million project will be moving forward in conjunction with the water metering project.
That is correct, your worship.
Is that not a little different than what you told us the last time, that it was gonna cost a lot more than that?
That is currently what's in the budget, your worship, yes. There is
Okay.
potential that it will cost more.
All right, so the plans are in place, you've got, you're working on that.
So we're working on that too. We've done some community design work as well as a pilot program on our potential free processing. We're hoping to have that done within the next 3 to 4 months.
Okay, great, thank you. Anybody else have anything? No, we're good. All right, thank you very much. And we'll now do planning and development services. If that would be you, Mr. Rizzo.
That's me, your worship. Thank you very much. I'll just do a couple of highlights. Most of the stats, they are up and down, but fairly close to past years. I think the 2 highlights over the past quarter were applying for the Housing Accelerator Fund. So that has occurred. We're still awaiting a decision from the federal government, and its councils heard previously, depending on our success of that application, will depend on the time, what will change the timelines of our zoning bylaw. So we're still awaiting that. And then the other item that we have commenced, we were looking at a strategic session regarding Gyro Park and some of our other parks, and that came in over budget. So council a couple months ago actually increased that amount to enable a full parks master plan. So we're really looking forward to that. It is in the RFP, drafting the RFP stage, and it will take approximately another year to complete. Upon completion of that, obviously it will provide a good roadmap for future RMI spending, which is one of the things that we're going to be talking about here in a few minutes. And that concludes my planning and development report.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for planning and development people? Alrighty, thank you very much. And so now we will go to the structure fire. Is that what we're doing next? The structure firefighting? That's you. Please.
Yes, Mayor Murdoch, through to you and the rest of council. Does anybody need a coffee? Because it's going to be about a 3-hour presentation before we start.
You're all day.
Not all day.
Do you bring cookies or? No?
No.
It's not too bad.
The RCMP meeting. Thank you very much. How many people know about what used to be referred to as the playbook with council?
Yeah.
What we're going to do is we're going to do just an overview, and it is now they've changed the playbook to the British Columbia structure, firefighter minimum training standards. We're gonna give you some background, some purposes of the reason, some of the changes and how I see those changes should occur. The changes that I'm kind of proposing were identified in the 2019 master plan. So this was something that was planned prior to my arrival, and it's I'm going to give the content to the reason why it's a good choice. And then at the very end, we'll talk about council's questions if they have anything. So the history and the timeline is this. The BC Fire Services Act was enacted in 1979, and that established minimum training standards for firefighters in the province. The issue is that nothing really happened with it. In 2003, they identified that the NFPA standard of the firefighter 1001, which is the firefighter 1 and firefighter 2 competencies, would be kind of the standard of how we were to be basing fire department training on as a level. And really nothing was done for a while with these standards because people didn't know how to wrap their head around it. There was a firefighter, his name was Chad Shapansky, and he was killed in a fire. And when there was investigation, they looked at training and they looked at the documentation of that training. Out of those investigations, they enacted the basis and the framework of what they used to call the old playbook. And the original copy came out in 2014. It was clunky because the first go that you have with anything, it's going to be a little bit clunky. So people were trying to wrap their heads around it, but it was a good way to start that dialogue that municipalities looked at their service levels that they were providing. And then in 2019, it was reviewed. And then in 2024, the reason why we're here in March, we are implementing new standards to that. The old playbook, which is the minimum training standards for structural firefighters in British Columbia. Why? Why was all of this done? Because they realized that it boiled down to safety. And fire departments, if you wanted to chew off as big as a chunk as you wanted to, you could really back in the day. You could kick open the door and go into a fully involved structure. There might only have been one person on the scene. There was nothing to stop you. However, the objective of all of this is to try to identify what training standard does the community want for the firefighters when they're conducting their businesses on the fire ground. The playbook was renamed, as I said, and in 2024, they're adding 3 different competencies for fire departments across British Columbia. We were anticipating these changes back in 2019, 2020. And the added competencies are for drivers and the operators of those vehicles, incident safety officers, and the incident commanders themselves. Incident safety officer is a position where at a live fire environment where you have a structure that's on fire, it is a designated person that's on the scene that has to be put in place to assume that safety is being conducted on the scene. The incident commander is the one that's responsible. So the incident commander is responsible for all personnel on the scene, including other agencies. And this includes BC Ambulance, includes RCMP, but it also includes utility. So when BC Hydro or Fortis Natural Gas or Fortis Electric comes, that individual, as an IC, the incident commander, has to make sure that everything's safe. The ISO, the incident safety officer, is that second layer of eyes that is on scene to make sure that everything is being conducted safely. If there is something that is unsafe on the scene, that incident safety officer goes to the incident commander and says, listen, we have 3 people on the roof. On the back side of the building, the front side of the roof is on fire. You have to get those crews off. The incident safety officer has the ability to overrule the incident commander on scene for safety. 9 times out of 10, if Ryan comes, Chief McCaskill comes to me and says, this is unsafe, we have to action it and we have to mitigate and remove those safety hazards to the crew. So why are these added in? Because it was something that wasn't considered important under the playbook. But now I think it's a more robust idea of making sure that everybody is responding safely. And with that, it gives the opportunity to have council look at their service delivery for fire suppression. So when we talk about the incident commander. The incident commander under WorkSafe basically has a guiding rule and regulation under Part 31. Part 31 has firefighting as part of their act and regs. Members who perform specific functions in training, they have to be documented, authorized, and qualified to do so. Anyone that is doing a job has to be able to know how to do that job safely. One of those examples is traffic control. If they're out doing traffic control and they haven't been trained on how to conduct traffic control, then they haven't been authorized and qualified to conduct that. And we do that here. In Osoyoos, we have a training program that specifically targets how to do traffic control. So that's just one piece. So the workers' compensation part 31 talks about a number of general requirements for all the things that we have in the fire service. Positive or personal protective equipment, respiratory protection, aerial devices, ladders, other equipment. It's not as robust as we would want it to be, and part 31 and the playbook or the minimum training standards should go hand in hand because they complement each other. And one important thing is that any of those incident commanders or some of the verbiage that they use in the minimum training standards is a team leader. If you're the incident commander or the team leader, it's no different than working at public works or in a swimming pool. If you're in those supervisory positions, WorkSafe says to you that you have to have all of the training and education to supervise other workers, especially if you're doing at-risk job or work-related duties. So you can't just say someone, I need you to go down to the ammonia plant at the arena and do your job if they have not been trained, authorized, and qualified to do so. Does that make sense? So the level of service is declared by mayor and council. The training standards are based really on three general service level categories. There's exterior, interior, and full service. I wish they would change the name to full service because full service does not denote us doing hazmat, us doing road rescue, us doing first medical response. It just talks about how we do fire suppression in small, medium-sized, or large buildings. So the first service level is exterior. I'm not going to go into it, but most people will understand surround and drown. If there's a fire inside a structure, if you're an exterior department, you cannot go into an environment which has IDLH, atmosphere on the inside, which is immediately dangerous to life and health. What that means is that if you're an exterior department, you can't go in. If there's a small fire, you can't go in. It might be a reflection of some fire departments that have 5 people, 1 truck, and the purchases that they don't have with the positive or the PPE, their personal protective equipment or outdated breathing apparatus. They might just not be able to actually go interior, but that's a choice, and that's the choice the authority having jurisdiction must make. So the service level that we're currently at is interior. So interior level of suppression allows us to enter into smaller dwellings, and it allows us to enter into those smaller dwellings to put fires on the inside. However, they're under the old playbook or the minimum training standards was a term that they would use as a complex building. Well, they didn't define what a complex building did, was initially. That complex building now has a definition under the changes of March 31st, 2024. So right now, we can enter into a complex building if the fire is in such a manner that we're, as fire firefighter's not gonna lose their way on the inside. We can enter into a complex building if we have fire department pre-plans. So under the old minimum training standards, there was two things that were kind of floating around. What was identified as a complex building, and can we enter or not? So if it's in a suite in a condominium and it's only one suite, is it a complex fire? Because the fire is located to just one suite. Would we be able to go in? That was kind of the question that everybody was asking themselves for a couple of years. The new 2024 standard takes the guesswork out. What they have said is that now, as part of the BC Building Code, a complex building under Part 9 is 3 stories or less, with a maximum of 600 square meters of living space, which is about 6,400 square feet. Just put that back into a little bit back here for a second. And now we're going to go into full service. So full service, under the playbook, the older standard, and the standard that's coming forward in 2024, identifies if you train your crew as full service, you can enter into any building without pre-plans. And that would allow us to enter into a suite at the watermark for a toaster fire that was on top of an oven, let's say. We'd go in, be able to action it, and leave. Under the new changes in 2024, we would not be able to enter into the structure unless we did fire department pre-plans. This is kind of a flow chart. So each one of those is a stackable, which means that if you want to go to the yellow, you have to be able to succeed at red. So that you have to basically get all of the competencies for red, and then get all the competencies at yellow, which is the interior operations level where we are right now. And what we're asking later today is that we move to a full service prior to the March 2024. Which means that there's a little bit of extra work that goes into being a full service fire department. But here are the costs. So how we maintain each one of those steps is working with the NFPA standard. The NFPA standard is the 1001 standard that has been denoted by the province to be the standard. So if you just want an exterior, it's going to cost you about $800. So that's an exterior firefighter. That's what it's actually going to cost you if you go through a program. Interior service is around $1,300. So basically your exterior plus $500. And your full service is another $200 on top of the interior service. So it's not 800 plus 300 plus 1,500. It's 800 plus 500 plus 200, if that makes sense. So that would kind of encapsulate the training that we use. Right now, what we're doing is we're training our firefighters as per the NFPA 1001, Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2 competencies. And we're using a accreditation, which is Pro Board certified, which means that they get a gold star at the end of it all. And it's through a company that we use. And at the end of their training, they become NFPA certified firefighter level 1 and level 2. So right now, we have 32 firefighters that are trained to be fully qualified as NFPA Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2 competencies. For officers, because they're in that supervisory role, to go to full service, it's about $1,500 to $1,800 per officer. Now, it depends on if we want to have our firefighters get their gold star, as I say, which is recognition from an authorized qualified body. I always say that it's a good thing because an external agency is actually making sure that we're following the rules by qualitative and quantitative testing, so that everybody is doing what they need to do without wasting their time. The other aspect of a lot of the other training that comes involved with being full service, we can do it in-house. One of the things is the driver training that was denoted as part of our strategic priorities earlier this year, which I have somewhere here. Those strategic priorities identified that to be ahead of this curve, that we looked at that comprehensive driving program, which was taught in-house by our own instructors. Which is good because most of this can be done, especially with the people that we have as either the chief or the deputy chiefs that are in charge of the department. So the town of Osoyoos, why do we need to go full service? We have many complex structures. In the change in 2024, we would not be able to enter into them without getting all of our fire department pre-plans. Councillor King was nice to point out that we have about 318 properties. And each one of those fire department plans, those fire department pre-plans, are anywhere between 8 to 20 hours of putting those pre-plans done. A lot of the existing structures of those larger buildings should have had them done prior to construction, but now we're trying to get them completed now. Completing all of the pre-incident fire department pre-incident plans, we're not going to not do them. We just need a lot of time to get them completed. Being a full service department will allow us to enter into that burning complex structure as long as it is safe to do so. And as long as it is safe to do so, it would still depend on the incident commander of the day, looking at human resources that we have. And not only that, but how large the extent of the fire is to the loss of the building. How much mass is already been taken away? Is it safe to actually go into the building? And then again, if we're relying on mutual aid departments, depending, or the lack of an aerial device to be able to provide some aerial fire suppression, it still may mean that we're not entering into those buildings depending on safety of the incident commanders of the crews. But without being full service, we would not be able to enter into those structures in an IDMH atmosphere. So this is a non-complex building. This is just your mom and pop. It is something that as an interior service that we could enter into if there was a small fire that's in the bedroom. And these are pictures of some complex buildings. Some that are existing, and others that have been brought into the fold, that they may look like just your normal home, but the size that is denoted in Part 9 of the BC Building Code denotes that it is a complex structure. So, summary. There's an updated version coming March 2024. Most of the standards for the firefighter professional qualifications, minimum job performance, we already have. The fire commissioner is responsible for establishing minimum standards, which are coming. So what are we doing currently? Well, right now we are using a Pro Board firefighter accreditation through Viera. This certification provides 2 of the 3 requirements for the fire service level. Our supervising officers have all completed their necessary training. And every one of our firefighters, except for our probationary firefighters, have conducted the training necessary to be full service firefighters. And under the requisite training, the people that are supervising the department, both the chiefs and the fire chief, are certified to be able to do so. So what needs to be done to move to full service? Well, not a lot because we were already there. We've been expecting this moving forward. The timely change in 2024 necessitates us to be able to either enter into complex buildings or not. It means that we either have to work really, really hard on creating some plans or be kind of a surrounded ground when the complex building has a small fire on the inside. The other aspect of this is that the level of service is declared by council. And maintaining that training cost needs to be acknowledged by council. So with 30 some odd firefighters that are already trained to that level, we would be looking at 5, depending every year, how many volunteers have come in. And then again, it's maintaining some of those skill sets to make sure that those skill sets are being always topped up and brought up to speed. So the good news is we've already eaten the elephant, and I think we're through to the other side. Mayor, through you to Mr. Council, do you have any questions?
Thank you very much, and we certainly appreciate the fact that all of this training has been done. And that we're up to speed on this. I can remember about 3 or 4 years ago, yeah, Mr. McCaskill was there and we had a full day workshop on the playbook, didn't we? And it was quite amazing at that time, because it wasn't something that we had been able to look at, and all of a sudden we had all these other requirements, which just kind of got started right then. So thank you, all of you, for making sure that we are really doing well in this fire department.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Like you're saying, with the playbook, how it is, it's a moving target. Always changing. That's why we decided to go above. We get the higher training. We have the NFPA standards covered with the 1001, and going that route, we don't have to worry about the playbook, because like I said, we're up there, and it can change again in the future. We'll still be up there. It might add a few competencies. We can handle that because we have the training and the officers able to do that training.
Absolutely, well, we appreciate it. Did you have a question? There's also a report that Chief Courtmeyer is going to speak to, right?
Are we doing that in regular, or are we doing it?
It's right here.
Yeah, so typically what happens, your worship, is the committee takes the information in and then they make a recommendation to council to adopt. So that's the motion that is here.
Yes.
And so, yeah, so that's our typical process.
Do you want me to?
Yeah.
And just that one more thing, there was Chief Courtmeyer did provide all the training materials, and you saw a slide there. That was not included here, but we'll make sure we get it to you. It's a very impressive. I don't know, it's almost tiring going through it as far as all the training. And so we'll provide that to you as well. So yeah, if we could get the motions to go, that the committee recommends to go to council, that'd be appreciated.
Okay.
Absolutely. Can I just see if Councillor King would like to ask a question first?
Mayor, report off to you through resident council. It wouldn't be a council meeting without Councillor King asking a question.
We know
Okay.
that. Go ahead, Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you,
That made it hard.
Do local services have any impact on public saving money and taxes?
No, and I don't know why. In my previous life in another municipality, we worked tirelessly to be recognized as the operational fuel treatment from FireSmart. So we were recognized as a FireSmart operationally fuelly treated community, and it didn't make any savings for the people that lived in the community that I formerly served. But I guarantee you that things are changing. We've had, I've had some discussions with some, because insurance used to be my game back in the day. And when you're having these discussions with some of the actuarial people that are writing some of the insurance policies, I think you're going to see a deeper look at services that communities provide. If they are FireSmart recognized, people are are going to have to start to look at fire smarting their properties. And it might not be a comfortable conversation, but I think it's a conversation that a lot of communities are gonna have to have. By the way that people are choosing to build their properties and how they're actually accenting those properties. We saw in some of the jurisdictions that we were operating in that had already suffered severe fire losses in the past. Homes that are still being built to at-risk standards and they're being allowed to do so. I think insurance companies are gonna draw the line. But I don't work there. So I think it's going to be something we're looking proactively in the future. And through you, Mayor, to Councillor King, we put forward a fire underwriter survey request for them to relook at our service. So we took all of this information that required, we gave it and hopes that that proactively changes our rating. In hopes that we can have that dialogue with FUS to be able to push that, because the way that we were being rated was on a 1987 standard. And it didn't take into consideration that we have not just one hall, 2 fire halls, we have a full-time fire prevention officer, 2 fire chiefs, the apparatus that we have. So all of that has been given to them, and I really hope that they take a look at that, and that if they make any changes, I think that will be what you're looking for.
I have another question too. With all these volunteers going through the full training, the full service, do you see us losing volunteers? Because then that gives the opportunity to move to another community and be kind of get paid.
Yes. Yeah, so my old chief once said, would you rather train them and have them leave, or not train them and have them stay? And I agree that supporting everybody in the steps towards their dreams, if they want to go and become full-time paid, we've lost 1 member. But I don't think you ever lose a member, because the professionalism that she is showing shines light on us. And there is a statistic out of 10 firefighters that you get now in the service, you might get 2 years out of them. If you look at Osoyoos, we have firefighter Lancaster, who's got 4 years. We got Captain Parker, we got Captain Coons, we got Captain Jorgens. We're not experiencing the attrition rate. And I think it's due to the leadership and dedication from Chief McCaskill and Chief Hodgman, not me, but I think it shows with progressive organizations that you can retain. And there is that risk, but again, the playbook says you have to make a choice and you have to train them. Not only do you have to train them, you have to document that training, which we do.
I think that's excellent. And are you moving forward with your Fire Smart program?
So that was a 2024 initiative, and we've identified some of the training that people have needed to undertake some of those opportunities. Chief Hadamar, because he's in charge of prevention, that's his bailiwick. Chief McCaskill and I will become auditors for that, and it will be a service that we're offering the town of Osoyoos, because the RDOS has their own Fire Smart. But we're working with them, and that's a 2024 strategic priority. So we have that. As again, trying to be as preventative as we can. It's coming down the pike.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else?
Okay, so
We're gonna go through the report that you have here so that we can make
yes.
recommendations. Good, thank you.
So the report that you have is the full service declaration. You have the background. The recommendation is that we move to a full service, shifting away from the interior service to a full service. And one of those aspects is that I'm able to talk to the OFC with that declaration to update them for that move.
Good, thank you very much. So the recommendation has just been laid out. What we would do then is vote on that, and then it would be moved to a regular meeting.
That's correct. You the whole cannot make a decision, so basically. If you'd like to, or you have additional comments you'd like administration to do, we can detail the report and provide to council, but this was the intent here was to educate you on the process. If you like what has been said here, you basically make a recommendation to council to support the move to full service.
So, Councillor Chong.
Move option one.
So that is that council declares the service level for serious fire rescue to be full service operations. And that the fire chief be authorized to advise the office of the fire commissioner of the change of service level and to implement the corresponding training program in support of that declaration. That's what we've moved and seconded.
Question.
Yes.
Would this cost a little bit more money? Will this come out of the funds they have aside right now, or do they need more funding?
Mayor, through you to Councillor King, we always need additional funding at the fire department, Councillor King. But like as I said earlier, the lion's share of all of the capacity, now it's just getting those firefighters out of Knox 1001 certified, which would mean any year between, like, it depends on the volunteers. Our maximum is 40, I do believe. So right now we're fluctuating about 30, 32 depending. We have another 5 on board, and that is already encapsulated in our training budget for rotational. And then, you know, as people leave, it means that, you know, especially if we lose officers, then, you know, yeah, we end up having to put that money in them too. But then there's also all of the ancillary services that we have to train. So if it's rope rescue, or if it's ice rescue, or if it's auto extrication or hazmat, all of those are outside of the declaration.
Okay, now I support it. I was just curious. If you're gonna need more money, obviously.
So it does say in the budget part of the implications that the Osoyoos Fire Rescue is already training and has budgeted to maintain the full service level declaration. So that's a good thing. Okay. So it's been moved and seconded that we recommend to make the recommendation, and I will call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor, and the rest of council. I try to keep it under the 3-hour mark.
Yeah, you did well. All right. We're gonna go on to the strategic priorities. Where is that?
Thank you, your worship. So as council may recall, we started a journey about a year ago to establish some priorities that both administration and public knew were where council wanted the municipality to grow and change and improve upon. And so, and then about 6 or 8 months ago, council also approved an infrastructure strategy, which helps administration plan for you know, how we're maintaining buildings and what to do from an administrative side to meet the goals of council. So this report was presented to council just before the budget, just to provide council with a bit of an update where we were at. And at that time, council made a motion to move this forward once the budget was passed, which it was officially a couple of weeks ago. So the format of the report has remained unchanged. Basically, attachment 1 is the previous or the existing strategic priorities chart with an update as to what has been done over the previous quarter. Attachment 2 is the infrastructure strategy. This one typically hasn't changed too much, but definitely is open to council for amendments. And then attachment 3 is the proposed new. So again, attachment 1, just take a look what has been completed over the last quarter. Attachment 2, the priority chart, which hasn't really been amended too much since it was passed by council about 6 months ago. And attachment 3 is the one that administration like to talk to administration or council about. And that's determining if you want to make some changes to the priorities or if not. This is your opportunity to have that discussion.
Thank you very much. So, anybody have any comments on attach number 3? What's on there? Can I first of all say that, look at the 5 council priorities that we started with, and 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, well, are done. And that's pretty amazing that 4 out of the 5 have been completed. The only one we haven't been able to move forward on, as a council, is the medical professionals recruitment. But, there are things being done in the province, so we're happy to see those things. So we've left that on, and, I'm just looking at the list that is here, number 2. From what I see in the green is the zoning bylaw, short-term rental update, and we're waiting for that one, and probably this month or next month. And the mixed housing strategy options, seeking opportunities with BC Housing, and update 2024. Anybody else have anything to look at? Is number 4 down here, if we were to move that up, is that in red, the water treatment plant? Mr. Risling, is that what? They, on attachment 3, you've got 1, 2, and 3 at the top already.
Yes.
And then is number 4 the water treatment plant, because it's in red? Is that what you're suggesting down under operations? Almost at the
So that
bottom.
is, so how the chart is set up is the operational strategies at the bottom half of the chart. These are items that administration is working on either through budget approvals and or previous direction of council. So these are some of the things that administration is working on. You will notice some of the things within the operational strategies linked to what the council priorities are. So as council develop, it passes the council priority, it slides to one of the 6 boxes.
Yeah.
So so I guess the one thing that council, I guess, has to probably consider is there is a lot going on within the operational pieces of each of the departments. A lot of these things have been passed through budgets, different motions, so the plates are pretty full. So with regards to additional strategic priorities, council priorities, you could put the water piece on there, you could, it is gonna march on. So you can do it 1 of 2 ways. I guess the big thing is, I think from administration's perspective, that there is a lot on the plate that's been passed through budgets, etc. Adding additional priorities within the top 5, now definitely we'll try to make them happen, but I think we're pretty maxed out on all the pieces that are moving forward. So to answer your question, you could put the water plants and that type of thing up in the council priorities, where you really don't have to, because now that's pretty much operation. Council's already approved it. There's gonna be some decision points along the way, but it's operation. It's moving forward.
My question was, it is noted in red, and I'm wondering if that was for a particular reason.
I think that's on
Still in.
second one.
That is on attachment 3.
Yeah, but sorry, number 4 is red, like Brianne said, it's delayed, but you can see it. Right.
It's red and still.
Oh, right there. Oh,
Yeah, I just wondered if that was for a reason, that's all, because none of the others
Oh,
are attached.
yeah, it's red there because it's just added the number, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay,
yeah,
that's
so
what I
really
was
that
asking.
red.
Yeah,
When we were tracking changes on these documents, it's really
I
kind
know,
of tricky.
I know.
So that red number 4 really could have just been the blue, or I don't know what color that actually is, purple. So.
Anybody else, did you have a question? Sean?
Question, comment, thank you.
Sure, go ahead.
One of the things we highlighted in the budget process was the recruitment of communications officer. But there doesn't seem to be anything in the strategic priorities that highlights
Yeah,
public communication.
yes, it is under corporate maintenance. It's on page 117 of the, and it says communication responsibilities. It's under corporate services and it's highlighted for January 2024.
Can we move that up to like, as up into like the council priority section, or? I mean, it's the process that are going on, it doesn't really need to be highlighted, right?
So I think just. It's not aware there have been an enormous amount of. Priorities and issues going on behind the scenes, there's the various bylaw issues. I can say that it is pretty much maxed out on the administration side of a lot of these pieces. So we have talked about moving this forward. There is a possibility that can be done in December. But every time we think we're ahead of the curve, we get another center. It's just, I have never been in a situation where there's been so many things pop up, which are just consuming administrative time that's really not adding value to the corporation. You're dealing with these fires that are just coming up. So, I mean, we can try, but I really don't want to promise this time. There's so many things, with the gig 10 oleander, a bunch of these things, and there's several others that are consuming an exorbitant amount of time. So council can put it down. I just don't really want to promise that to be done by December 15th.
So follow-up question, I guess the better question is what capacity do we have to make changes to the priorities chart?
I mean, I think the thing is, if it would be good to know if council has some things that they want to do, and then we can try to slot them in. So it's, again, regardless of when we can get to it, it gives us an idea as to how we should slot it into our reports. And then ultimately, once we go back and sit through this, council can say, no, we want to make this number one versus that one. So it always is good to know what's in council's heads, so that we can do some prep work to deal with things. So the more direction you can provide, it'd be appreciated. You do have flexibility, it's just on the timelines that we'll be able to deliver it.
I guess I was thinking, we have 3 up there, I thought we were looking to put 5. And so I'm thinking, what would be the next 2 things that you would move up there to be 4 and 5, or do we not need that because so many of these things are being worked on?
So you can absolutely still do that. I'll just caution council to understand that the deadline or the time expected for us to do that next step is gonna take a while. So absolutely, I think it's good for council to talk about what's kind of your next things on your list. But as far as the timeline, as far as administration to deal with it, it's probably gonna take a little bit longer than you would like.
I'm not sure that we have a timeline on it, other than it's already mentioned in there, it's just become a priority for us. Based on what's already there, that there is, it says January 2024 and an animal control bylaw review, March 2024. Those are great, those are the kinds of things. Should they be moved up here, or are they already being done and we don't need to move them up?
Yeah, anything within the operational strategies, you don't have to move up to your
Oh,
councils.
Perfect, all right. Councillor King.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have the choice to move them up, though. And since we've done a couple, I support Councillor Chung that we could move that up, but we could also change the date to June or July instead of January. To use the communication position. I think it's important we move some strategies up. That's our job, to move some stuff up. How you get it done, I don't know. But to leave it as is, we're not really doing anything. So I suggest we move that communication first up to its top priority. And just change the date, like give it 6 or 8 months further down the road instead of January, which more likely is unrealistic. Are we allowed to change the date on that also? If we move that, we could change the date, right?
Does that make sense to you then? Yeah, please.
You can, so we're hoping, like, what we're thinking on the communication side and what we committed to council is. Developing kind of a list of expectations of what the position would do. And we were hoping that by January, we'll be able to provide you with an outline as to what some of the expectations of that position would be. Once we have that and finalize the job description, then we would post. So really that position, we are talking, it was likely close to that May, June date is when.
I respect that, that's what I said, I still think we could move it up to
You
a
can.
priority,
You can,
that's what I would vote to do.
You okay with that? Yeah,
Cause
I-
it's, sorry.
yeah, no, go ahead.
Because I feel like it's kind of a balance between which ones can be quick wins once we have some administrative firepower to get them done, right? So if we can move that up a little higher, then we can potentially finish it on the timeline. And I have a feeling the limiting factor for that is going to be responses on the job posting and interviews and whatnot, the criteria itself developing that should be time intensive. And my second comment is maybe we can move the asset management up into a council priority. I know that's gonna be a longer term aspect, but I think it's of all the next one, to me, it'd probably be the most important.
Does that make sense to everybody else? Yeah. So the communications, position responsibilities, and we know it's in the works, it will be, could be moved up, and the asset management draft plan and policy would be number 5. Is that what you're recommending? Yeah. Is, that gives us 5 up there, not that we need to have it, like, we know that things take longer than we ever expect, we know that, that's just the way things happen, we never get things done on time, not anybody's problem, responsibility, concerns, we just know it takes longer because there's too many issues to deal with.
I think the positive of this process is, we set some goals, and if there's some issues that arise, we inform council and. And maybe we have to make some changes, but I think it's always good to have some goals that are there, and if things come up, we'll let you know and let us move something or or amend it. Director Bronstein, I think wanted to say something with regards
Go
to
ahead.
asset management plan.
Thank you, Stu. Just curious on what council's expectations are in regards to asset management. You bring it forefront in your priorities. Asset management is a fairly large to do. I'm just curious of what council's expectations are so that thought process will at least start. So I get some guidelines.
Haven't we already done a lot of that with the water and the wastewater, those
So you-
kinds of
you-
things
you've
have
done
been,
very-
yeah.
Broad and overarching asset management looks. I'm just wondering if council's expectations to start having true asset management plans where we start getting into details of asset management. What we've done is very high level. When we start looking at asset management in its entirety, you start looking at the nuts and bolts. It's that council's intention is to go down to that level, or do you want to keep it high level asset management? Again, this steers the conversation between staff and council in regards to.
But aren't we required to have an asset management plan in place? I mean, haven't they extended the deadline now and we have to have this done at some point?
So yes, your worship, you do have to have an asset management plan, but how they define that asset management plan is not very clear. So it just be the expectation of council and what they want in regards to asset management, if you want to keep it high level. Or do you want to start looking at the weeds?
I think we have to do what the government is telling us we have to do. They must have some rules and regulations or guidelines there that we have to complete. Am I correct or not?
So, worship, no, they don't have the detailed, worked out. Now, we've decided to take a higher level approach. It's good, but it's not the detail that a lot of people would like we would. You go to the extent of actually having it incorporated in your GIS system, and down to the nut and bolt. Probably wouldn't get to that stage, but right now we can keep in kind of a high level so that we can at least put some funding away so that we start fixing things. I think that's where we started with, is keeping it like a fairly high level so that we can get something done and commence the process. So I think we were always thinking keeping it, say, not here. And not here, but kind of in the middle, there's something to give us a start, and I think over time we need to, and improve that. So if council wants it to really get into the weeds, that would change some of the water and sewer stuff that we've done already. And so if you remember the presentation of True Consulting, they did indicate, it didn't include even the 6-inch pipes. It was kept up here, there's still gonna be some problems with it, but it's how much are we gonna put into it, rather than trying to get all of our other asset management plans at least to a 50% level. So I think just, you know, if you want it really, really detailed, it would absolutely help administration, because then you know it's down to the detail as to what to do.
Yeah.
But I just don't know if we have the time, and whether it's more important to try to get every plan at about a 50% level rather than a detailed one.
As long as that's legal, what we're doing, Councillor King and then Councillor.
Well, I think we're talking about moving it up. We're not putting a timeline on it. We're just moving it up. At this time, because we need some more information back to make the decision you're discussing about.
Yeah, I agree with the committee on that, this is getting some guidance.
So we're
from the
just like
committee,
moving it up. We're not putting a date on it. It could be 225, but we think it's very important that you don't lose the thought around it. And just so the public knows, because they're numbered 1 to 5, that doesn't make number 1 top priority. They're just numbered because they're numbered. They could be A, B, C, D, or whatever. So the public's got to realize they're not necessarily 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're just
You know,
the top 5.
Councillor Chung.
Thank you. My kind of thought process for adding or shifting asset management upwards is it's a public document, so we can put it on the radar for the public to understand what an asset management plan is, why it's important. B, to give us a bit more transparency for the budgetary process, because we can only make the best informed decision. And in terms of the detail level, probably somewhere as long as said, somewhere in the middle. Like, I don't need to know how many bolts and screws we have and storage and whatnot, but something so that when we do the next round of budget, then we can be a bit more proactive. Because there tends to be a theme where we have this direction, then we get hit by something else. And it's, we're playing catch up. So I think we just gotta keep aggressively playing catch up, so that we have an insane amount of detail to overload ops, but just enough so that we have a better direction for the budget in the future.
I agree, and keeping it top of mind, I think is, helps us to all of us.
So it's really shared around the committee, so. I realize this is not higher than your guys' priority list, this is not something that's coming to the table in the next 6 to 8 weeks. I'm assuming you guys are wanting something in the next year to 2. When that does come back to council, what do you want? Do you want presentation on what asset management is, usually why we do it, here are some of the different levels of asset management, and then you want to start discussing how far you want to go into the.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I agree, because we may all have different ideas about what asset management is, it's been talked about for years. And as far as I knew, since I've been in this job, people have said, well, you have to do this study and you have to get asset management going. And I thought at one point that it meant how many nails and bolts and all that kind of stuff you had. And maybe it is, maybe it doesn't, maybe it's changed a bit, but I do think we need a better understanding of what's involved, what the timeline is, what the costs are, and it's just one of the priorities. It doesn't have to be done today. It's just, we want to keep it up there in our minds so that we understand it better. Go ahead.
And I'd like to see a focus on different levels of asset management and costs associated, pros and cons. So we can decide what level of asset management we want to commit to.
And haven't we already sort of looked at that whole thing for parks and looking at that?
Interesting garbage cans.
Maybe. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Is
so
that-
the only,
is
yes,
that-
so the only two,
Yes.
there's 3 asset management plans. Complete, that's the domestic water, that's the wastewater and fleet. So those are the 3 that have been completed, and there again, but I don't know what percentage, like 60% as far as thoroughness. Maybe, and so we still have the non-potable water, we have all the parks and recreation type stuff. We're hoping to get some of that stuff done here over the next 2 or 3 months. We have definitely the non-potable water is one that's really on our radar, and we may be coming forward here next little bit to talk about the timeline on those individual plans. So there's bunch of little pieces that we're attempting to do. We'll, guess hearing from council, we'll put some of that stuff together so that we have a better overview.
Thank you. No, we knew some of it had been done, so, you know, we're just wanting to continue it, I think. That's what the idea is. Okay. Is there anything else then? Have you got enough information?
Well, your worship, maybe one more, because
Yes.
I did this, so I don't know what the heck was going on with my thinking here. Zoning bylaw short-term rentals, we do know that we received some council direction on speeding up short-term rentals. And so we're in that process, doing some surveys, chatting with some other municipalities. That is not going to occur in November, as it's stated here. If we get lucky, maybe the meeting in December, if not January is a plan. So we're moving forward on it, but I would prefer to have it January. If we get it done for December 15th, we will, but.
I'm fine with that. I think we need to change the timelines on some of these things, then, you know, let's do it, because we know that things take longer. And if we don't get a report back from, you know, powers that be, then we absolutely need to change it a bit.
Thank you very much. Has the provincial government just come out with some new stuff that they're gonna pass in January, February? So don't we kind of have to wait to see what they come up with before we kind of finalize ours?
I think there's 2 or 3 steps to, you're absolutely correct, Councilor King, that they come out with some legislation that can still be amended, and once it hits the regulations, that's where the devil in details is. I think our next step, and so what we've attempted to do in some of these priorities is do like smaller step increments. And one of the things that we're trying to do is that we know council wants to implement some type of short-term rental program for January, like 2025. And so we do know things like software take us about 11 months to implement. So a motion made about a month ago was for administration to get it going for January 1st, 2025. And so administration is attempting to put some information together for council as soon as possible, a month or 2 months. So you have a picture as to what that would likely entail. So that's what this deadline basically is to give you kind of another snapshot with what it would take to implement. And at that point, also talk about the preliminary stuff that the province has announced. So it's a bunch of pieces going on here.
That's fine. Yeah, for sure. So, do you need any other information? Are you okay with this? Update of this chart?
I think we've got some stuff so we can make some amendments and bring it forward to council.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So we have a motion. That the committee as a whole recommend that council approve the amended strategic priorities chart with the following changes. By adding the communications position to number 4, asset management to number 5. And that the zoning bylaw short-term rental STR update to council and consultation be changed to January 2024.
Is that okay? Moving that. Councillor King seconding that. All in favor? Thank you very much.
And then the second motion would be that the committee of the whole recommend that council approve the infrastructure strategy as contained in attachment 2. If council has no changes to that.
There wasn't anything recommended there. Does anybody have anything they want to add to that one? So we're okay with it the way it is. Thank you. And we've already got number 3. Because you've got 4 motions here, so.
Oh, no.
Listen.
No, we found that those other 2 are duplicates, so we can make a reference to the motion.
Thank you.
You still need a motion for the option 2, right?
Yes, we still need one for the infrastructure strategy.
Okay. Councillor Chong, Councillor Bennett, all in favor? Thank you. All right. We will move on to the resort municipality initiative. Mr. Rizzo.
Thank you, Your Worship. We've been talking a while about our RMI money. It is something that is desperately needed within the tourist destination municipalities. And we get approximately, it changes every year. We don't know exactly how much we're even gonna get for 2025 and 26. but it does fluctuate based on hotel accommodations and other factors. This funding has to be spent on certain things. It can't be spent on things like our sewer and building town hall or building a fire hall, that type of thing. It has to be dedicated to various things with regards to that would improve our municipality status. Council is aware we had funding remaining from 2019 to 2021 fiscal plan. That funding must be spent by the end of March 2024. If we don't spend it, we will actually lose it. So at this point, we believe we have about $130,000 remaining from that fiscal period. So the administration has done is provided this report so that council has the ability to pick and choose some various options, projects that they may want to complete by that time. So we've identified various projects, and if you counted them all up, it's far in excess of $1 million. Council has the ability to simply approve enough to spend that approximately $130,000, or they could actually start dipping into a 2022 to 2025 plan. So, or 2020, 2025 one, 2024 plan. So there is approximately, so council did approve an RMI plan that we submitted a year or so ago. That plan can be amended. So in effect, what I'm basically saying is that council needs to spend $130,000 to review the project. Or if you have other projects, that's fine, we can change. And if they like some of these projects, they can actually start utilizing some of their 2024 funding to move some of these other projects forward. So really it's, you can go either way. They bite off a little piece, just deal with the funds that need to be spent by March 2024, or you go a little bit further. So this is intended to be a discussion on how you want to start spending some of that RMI funding.
Well, can I just ask a question first, because we're assuming, according to this, that money must be spent by March 31st, 2027 is in the report here. Should we be at all concerned that next year in 2024, there's probably a provincial election? And might that change? Because it often does what happens to RMI funds. So whenever we have RMI meetings, we always say, you know, we want to make sure that the government understands how important it is to have plans in place and to have this money available for the 14 resort municipalities and other people too that like to have some of that. And so is it sensible for us to assume that we could go ahead and spend more than this when we're not quite sure yet? Or do you think that's not something to worry about?
Well, I think there's always risks in the future
Yeah.
years. We did just sign off on what 2024 was gonna be, and it's positive. It's actually a little bit more than we received in this fiscal year, so that's positive. I think whenever you look into the future, you're right, you never do know. Is there a contract signed? Yes, but I mean, until the money's in the bank, you never know. I think the other more significant concern is the funding formula for RMI is not really that transparent. We've talked about that before, and even the resort municipalities themselves have talked about how that funding is distributed. They talk about hotel occupancies or vacancies. They talk about how much what's been the impact as far as occupancy, vacancy in the off season. So we don't know exactly the formula. I think my concern, considering what we just went through, probably our busiest month of August, the hotel occupancies were horrible, to put it mildly. And so depending on the weighting of that formula, and if they don't take a harder look at the situation we were in, it was outside our control. I am a little bit nervous about the 2025 funding. So I think you're correct in a way, Madam Mayor, that we just don't know what's going to come up in the future years. I think which I think the public has heard, this council has done a ton of work with RMI. In fact, there was just a meeting only a week or two ago, the RMI communities looking to expand this funding to allow it to be a little bit more flexible and also to increase it. So I think there's high hopes that we'll get more flexibility and more, But I think you're also very realistic and potentially maybe it's not there in 2 weeks. It's a tough call. I think we're good for 2024. I think that's gonna occur. As you start going further out, I think it's a little bit hazy.
Thank you. So I just think we need to be a little bit careful about what we spend and not take on too much just in case. And, you know, fingers crossed that it doesn't happen, but go ahead.
Thank you. Reading through the report, it seems like time is probably of the essence, because you have to spend everything by March 31st, 2024, the 130,000. I think, getting the cement bases done is probably checks most of the boxes. That costs 130,000. We have 130,000, it can be done before the deadline, and then we could pull the remaining from the 2024 farm line allotment to finish on the side. Does that sound reasonable?
It's a council decision, so we have 130,000, you're right, how we do the cement pieces and. I guess one of the things that if we're going to proceed, I think you're exactly right. We want to pour, we want to make sure that the signs can go on, so it would have to be a group package, tap into 2024, we don't want to. Pour a base, we don't order the signs and then the signs somewhat change and then the base needs to be adjusted, so. If council's priority is to proceed with all of the signs, including the community signs. Yes, we can take 130,000 out of the funds that are expiring in March and tap into 2022 funding actually for the remainder of the signs.
How about the rest of you? You all okay?
Yeah, I could support that, but we're gonna talk about other things on the list, because I'd like to move a couple of these other things forward using the 222 funding. If we use up all the other funding from previous.
So what would you recommend as top?
Well, number 2, I would support, and we've had quite a few talks at the community service about a trailer. It would be utilized for moving a lot of stuff around. I think that would save a lot of staff time in the bigger picture. It was one trailer could get moved for stanchions and different things at parades. So I think both of those items are worthwhile. Number 2 and number 3.
2 is the LEDs advertising sign.
Yeah,
That
that's Norris or at the ice rink.
Yeah.
So if there's a major fire, a major accident, or major things going on, they could just type it in and put it up. I think it saves staff time going out there manually putting up some signs. You know, you can talk about when the hockey games or whatever. I think it's moving forward with a sign, as long as it complies with our sign bylaw, which I believe it does. I know there's only certain things you can put up there. You can't moving things on it, but I think that would be a good thing to do. And to have that trailer, like I said, we've talked about it quite a bit at community services committee. And they feel strongly that would make sense to have one trailer to put all that stuff in. Instead of pulling it from the work yards and this and that. One truck pulls it to the site and so on. So I think that makes like 2 great things that could be added.
Okay, so now we've got 3 things. When I looked at this, the LED advertising sign at the Sun Bowl, I know that next year is the 50th anniversary of the Sun Bowl Arena. And you know, I wasn't sure what kinds of things might be planned for that, or whether there was something special that was gonna happen, but in my mind, I thought, gee, that would be like a neat thing to do for the 50th, but I have no idea whether that works or not. There's also, of course, washrooms, which is down there. We did. The washroom on Pioneer Walkway was something that we had already agreed was going to be added to our list, and I'm not sure where that fits in. Are you just, the reason it's on that list is because it would be moved forward to build soon? Is that why it's there?
So your worship, the Pioneer Walkway is, washroom is not really on any official list. As far as doing an all season. Washroom, it is not officially on any list.
I'm sorry, that was my understanding that the last time when we talked about that was one of the highest things that we thought should happen, but maybe it's not on the list. I'm not sure where it is then. I just remember it was talked about.
Did
It
talk
was
about-
agreed that that would be something that would be sort of the next washroom to be done, I think. Am I wrong on that? Am I misconstrued that?
So there's been a lot of talk about washrooms, but there's been no motion and it's
Okay.
not in the 5-year plan.
Okay. I thought it was, so that's my mistake, sorry.
We've been looking at some efficiencies as far
Yeah.
as we doing other capital projects, but there really is no funding allocated to the a washroom.
Okay. Go ahead, did you have something? Yeah.
Here's a question for you to direct Robson. With Pioneer Walkway location and some talks of the potential second structure on that property, would the site allow for both? Or would it be better off with one building?
Through the chair to the Puerto Rico. You would end up demolishing the existing structure, including the structure on that particular spot, it would not interfere with, potential of relocating another.
Okay, so we are now looking at 3 different things. The the project number 1, the LED sign number 2, and the community trailer number 3. How do we want to move forward with this? Because I don't think we can afford all 3.
I think
We
can.
could. Do you think so? We could use the, oh, okay, I thought we might have to.
We haven't discussed about garbage cans number 5.
Hmm. Are you putting that on the list as
Well,
well?
I'm just wanting some conversation. I don't really know how many we have now as asset management. Or how big a need there is for these new type of garbage cans. Is there any comment?
Through the chair to Councilor King, we have 256 community garbage cans. They are aging, they are getting less and less up to date, so the West looking at replacing the ones on Gyro. There was ones looking at replacing ones on Gyro Walkway, there was ones looking at other locations in the community, especially Main Street, to provide more opportunity for refuge collection, so that we're not having and overflowing during peak usage. So there is a need for additional garbage cans in the community. We wanted to make a little bit more robust and easier service.
You kind of identified 12 that could have been replaced or a couple of new ones in other locations, or replacing 12.
Replacing existing locations with new ones, yes.
So the picture on attachment 3 is what you're suggesting?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Um,
can see moving that much forward also.
so you want to spend all the money?
No, there's a $500,000 coming, or $1 million, close to $1 million over the next 3 years. So we'll say there's 300,000 for 224. And this hardly puts a dent in it, really.
But you have to be careful what you spend the money on too, don't you? It
But
can't
all
be
these would fit into the RMI, that's why they're on the list.
Yeah. for the amount that we have, because some of it has to be for festivals and some of it has to be for other things. Okay, we're just checking to make sure we fit. Go ahead.
Can we just get confirmation from council? If council is wishing to go ahead with the walkthroughs? In the report, it had a single washer or a double, are you going with the double washer, and is that just for Pioneer? Or are you also looking for one, in the downtown area? Just so we can make sure that the motion is reflected.
That wasn't.
We were.
I think the washroom number 4 is probably the bottom of the list from what I can see.
Well, James, we're not on it.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're not.
so it would be number 1, 2, 3, and 5 that
Okay.
we're kind of looking at. What is your pleasure, council? Yeah,
Well, I'll make the motion that we move forward with number 1 with the existing.
with the existing, plus the other, the rest of it to make up 222,000. Is that what you're suggesting? Because you don't want to just do the cement bases without the signs, right?
Yep.
So you're moving that one? I would think that, but we can't, Councillor Chong's already gone, so it would have to be somebody else would, second that. Okay, thank you. So do you want us to vote on that one first before we move on to the others, or do we go through all of them?
I think, your worship, probably separate, because if
Okay.
you first might wanna vote on something different. Um,
All right, we can do that. So. Project number 1 to 225,000, that's what we're voting on right now, all in favor? Thank you. Okay. Now, somebody want to make another motion?
Okay, we have an option, number 2 is all the LED advertising signs, some of it. Installation.
Okay, and is there a seconder?
Which one was that? for?
For number 2, the LED signs.
That one, anybody have any questions or concerns about that? Okay, all in favor? I'm gonna vote against that one, I think it's better to be put off, but council's spoken, so that's okay. How about number 3?
I'll move number 3.
So community events trailer, seconded by Councillor Coderica. Any concerns on that one? Does that seem to me it just sort of became talked about quite recently? Or has this, Mr. Davis, been discussed before? I think it was for an event that was coming up very soon that I saw it was mentioned. Has this been something that's been on the radar for a while?
Yes, as Councilor King, excuse me, has mentioned that it was discussed extensively at Community Services Advisory Committee.
Okay,
So there was in the past. Meeting with our alliance group a couple of years ago was an item that was discussed as well.
okay. So it would mean that people would, if they were having a special event, that would be one of the things that they would request as part of, okay, fair enough, thank you. All right, so number 3, community special events trailer, moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Any others?
Number 5.
I was waiting for it. So that would be garbage cans, and that would be a total of 41,500. Am I correct? That's what it says there. Okay, is there a seconder for that? Thank you. Councillor Coderica seconding that. All in favor? Thank you. So we spent all the money. We're now done.
So, your worship, just one thing we might be checking into, I'm not sure if we're gonna have to amend one of those motions at the council meeting to indicate that it's 2019 funding. To 2021, so we'll just look at a little bit into
Okay,
it, but we shouldn't have to, because as long as we're spending. We can
Okay.
probably slide in, 'cause we don't have to amend our strategic plan, we should be okay. I'll just double check these.
that will be added on this afternoon. if
This afternoon
necessary.
if we
Okay.
need to, yeah.
Thank you very much. Is there anything else that we need to bring up at the committee of the whole meeting? No, we're good. Councillor King, the Terminator 1 and 2, all in favor. Thank you.
I'll be back.